And we're live. Welcome, everybody, here to your favorite day of the week. I'm Anthony Irwin, joined on this fine Friday afternoon by Pete Zayas, as I always am for these episodes of The Hook. Today on the show, we are going to be talking about, you know, everything. Steve Ballmer went on ESPN last night and, didn't at all look like those questions were pre-written. We have Mark Cuban weighing in to Pablo Torre himself. And I thought that interview was very telling of the way billionaires think of the rest of us peons. I want to talk about why this story resonates so much and why it has riled me up. And I'm sure, Pete, it has kind of riled you up for some of the same reasons. So we'll talk about that. The NBA has said that they are going to be investigating this story. And, well, as you can see from Pete's rolling his eyes there, I feel the same way. And in how I feel about the investigation, stretching the definition of that word, I think, quite far whenever the NBA does so. So we'll talk about that and what's at stake with that investigation, because like one of the things I've been wondering is like, what happens if nothing happens to Steve Ballmer here? What does that mean for future cap circumvention? And then finally, Ballmer was on ESPN. A certain national reporter who typically has information on everything hasn't seemed to have much on this particular story, and I have found that really kind of curious. So, Pete, how you holding up, bud?
I'm good. I've been spending my morning setting up my shell companies for all the financial crimes I plan on committing. So I got GA34 BBGO LLC set up. We've got NJ15 Delta LLC. Just setting things up for the future for our Lakers. And, if you keep a couple million for brokering the deal, that's how things work when you don't have to follow the rules.
It kind of reminds me that bit reminds me of back at the beginning of Twitter when people would just go out and create ats for famous people names.
Mm-hmm.
And then those famous people would buy the ats from those people. And then also, like, Pete, you and I have made this joke privately. I'm going to go ahead and make it again here. The KL Aspire 2 KL2 Aspire LLC was the thing that, one of the red flags that went off in this story. And it reminded me of like desktop icons where
you got to sort your financial crimes. Like, you gotta make sure, like, okay, this illicit payment is coming from here. This one's coming from there. You got to have it organized.
It makes me wonder, like, how many of these LLCs are there? Like, is there like a KL2 Microsoft? Like, what's like,
serious question. How prevalent do you think this is? Because how many thumb drives with untraceable crypto, or I think real estate is a super easy place to do stuff like this. Well, do you think this is a prevalent thing?
Based on the conversations I've had over the last few days, I would say no. Mm-hmm. That like a lot of people around the league that I've kind of spoken to are kind of like, no, this goes far and beyond.
Yeah.
This goes really, and that's why this is a story, right? And that's why that's why, it's a podcast that has lit the league on fire. Like there are so many people who are just so happy to talk about this, especially now a few days later. So we'll, let's, as a reminder, before we fully dive on in, please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. If you guys are listening to this in the version of a podcast, please subscribe wherever it is that you get your podcast, preferably on Odyssey, because Pete and I are company men, a company that pays us legally, which is an important, I think, detail to offer up. Apparently, that's something that we need to delineate. But yeah, I want to start, Pete, with Steve Ballmer's conversation last night, because that was basically ESPN's entryway into the story. Like, they've basically sat this thing out until Ramona sat down with Steve Ballmer. And, like Shams, he did like a Sports Center hit where he was like, well, this is what the league would have to find to really have to punish Ballmer. The Collective, I thought, had a good conversation about it today. Windhorst, I think importantly said, hey, we have to still wait for all of the facts to come out and investigation, all that. And I think that's important to always note. I also thought it was good that Tim McMahon said on that show, yeah, also NBA, you'd better actually run an investigation here, because we've seen what other they investigated the acquisition of Kawhi Leonard and found nothing, when clearly there seems to have been something going on.
Yeah.
Allegedly. And then Ballmer sits down last night with Ramona Shelburne. And Pete, I have a few clips here of that interview. And I thought this was the one that really kind of caught my attention the most. Ramona asks Ballmer about the relationship with Uncle Dennis, and if anything untoward has been requested since 2019, when again they were investigated for him requesting things of the Lakers and of the Raptors that made both teams blush, which is kind of insane in this NBA world. But here was Steve Ballmer's response.
They know the rules. They, meaning Kawhi and his representatives, including his uncle. We know the rules. And if anything's not clear, we remind ourselves what the rules are. And we make absolutely clear we're going to abide by those rules. And they understand them as well. And it's important for them to abide by them, which they have.
That ain't a no, is it? That ain't a no.
That's the thing. Ramona said on the Hoop Collective podcast, she asked that question as a yes or no question. Like that, that's not normally the kind of thing you do in TV interviews or podcast interviews.
Yeah, you want them to talk and kind of elaborate.
You want context, all that stuff. But that was one of those easy, like, yes or no. And he didn't say no. And I think that was, I think, very noteworthy about the way that Uncle Dennis and Kawhi Leonard, and they aren't unique in this sense that, there are a lot of Uncle Dennises out there. Uncle Denai, I guess, is what I would say out there around the league. But I do think that was an important starting point into like kind of Ballmer's response to all of this. This was another one too, though. This was one of the times that he got the most kind of defensive over Aspiration LLC and their relationship with the Clippers and their relationship with Kawhi.
In the court documents and in Pablo's podcast, they reported it was $28 million.
Pablo's podcast, I don't know anything about the court documents on this. I haven't seen them, and I don't know. I'm not trying to be, I don't know. I really don't know. But the speculation is what it is. And why did they do that?
It's a lot of money. I mean, $28 million, $7 million a year is a lot of money for a guy that you didn't actually require to do anything.
I don't know why they did what they did, and I don't know how different it is. I really don't. And frankly, any speculation would be crazy. These were guys who committed fraud. How would I be able? Look, they conned me.
You're one of the richest men in America.
They conned me. I made an investment in these guys thinking it was on the up and up, and they conned me. At this stage, I have no ability to predict why they might have done anything they did.
So here's my thing, Pete. Steve Ballmer prides himself on return on investment when he invests. And one of the ways that he secures a solid return on investment when he invests into things is by being a very hands-on investor. He checks in, he asks questions, he tries to optimize whatever company he is investing into, and he kind of stays on top of it, especially with the company that he invests to the tune of $50 million. And I know that's pennies to the sixth richest man in the world or whatever, but still, if you're and by the way, it's not pennies to Kawhi Leonard, who just so happened to get $48 million, or the agreement was for $48 million, while Ballmer was invested to the tune of $50 million. And to say like, oh, I didn't see the court documents. You haven't seen it since? You're willing to call them fraudsters. You're willing to say that they conned you, but you haven't taken the time to look into some of the court documents on said fraud when it's to the tune of $50 million. They were heavy investors into the Intuit Dome. $300 million was the relationship between the Clippers and Aspiration LLC. That's a lot of trees, Pete. We can't pretend that you're dumb here in this case when you consider yourself a visionary.
That's exactly what these dudes do. These billionaires and super powerful people. They do the fucking Men in Black thing where they're like, "You did not see that," and look over here and all of that. What was Kawhi Leonard paid to do?
No, well, all right. That's the funny thing, right? Is that the terms of the agreement, there were no operational deliverables, right? He got to veto everything. If they said like, "Hey man, can you like one of our tweets?" He could have been like, "Well, I don't really believe in what you guys are selling."
So a company that has Drake, Robert Downey Jr., Leonardo DiCaprio, all of these way bigger stars,
Orlando Bloom, Cindy Crawford,
all of whom make way less money to represent the company and do more for it. That's why I'm saying this whole like, oh, there's not going to be enough for the NBA to come down hard on them and whatnot. Like, whether or not the NBA comes down hard on them, I think is a function of what Adam Silver decides. And that sounds very Adam Silvery to me, to give them a slap on the wrist. But until they can answer the question, what exactly did Kawhi Leonard get paid to do for your team? A $50 million investment from Steve Ballmer and $48 million coming out into Kawhi Leonard's pocket on the other end of that. I'm sorry, man. That's and if that's the thing, if it's a slap on the wrist, and we're just
another one, by the way, another one.
What was the first one, by the way? You had talked about this.
He was involved in DeAndre Jordan and keeping DeAndre Jordan when he offered DeAndre Jordan a $200,000 relationship between him and a Lexus dealership back at the time.
So the same
they
type
got to
of
keep DeAndre Jordan. And he was fined $250,000. If we're talking about $50 million not really mattering to Steve Ballmer, how do you think he feels about $250K?
So it's the same nature, right? Like, oh, we're going to set you up with an endorsement deal with another company that you can. And that's what I'm saying. If it's a slap on the wrist, the Lakers better go hog fucking wild, setting up as much like we can pay you behind the scenes type of stuff. Remember how we used to kind of laugh at Mitch Kupchak for being the guy who would wait until the Boy Scout who would wait until 12:01 to actually call when every other fucking GM in the league was like in contact and had deals agreed to type of thing. If this is just something that people can do and like, you can't really you need a smoking gun type of thing. I know the language in the contract that they have negotiated is that circumstantial evidence, like Silver can use circumstantial evidence. And that's what I'm saying. They're going to have to answer that question of like, well, what was Kawhi given all of this money for then? If it wasn't for that. And and I understand Steve Ballmer can't answer that on behalf of Aspiration or whatever, but somebody's going to have to answer to that. And I know Pablo Torre had a former, now this person could be lying. I don't know, right? It was a
maybe
type of thing with a vocoder and, hidden identity and all of that. It doesn't mean
although, can I say the voice coder thing?
Not great. I would be a little mad. I'd be like,
it's supposed to protect you from intonation too. Like it's supposed to be very monotone.
Right.
And like this person was very spicy and zesty. Maybe they're just that zesty that it overzested. But like, actually, this actually offers us a perfect segue into the second bullet point here, which is what's at stake in this investigation. And a trend that I have noticed under Adam Silver is a very picky, choosy investigation process. Some investigations are extremely thorough and they go through all kinds of social media and they comb the earth for whatever it is they need to find to properly suspend or punish a player, especially for, say, gambling issues. There are other investigations, like, say, this is a Lakers podcast. Jackson Hayes was accused of domestic violence.
Stuff.
In that initial investigation, they never spoke to the victim and apparently somehow missed tape of said, domestic violence incident. And then TMZ and nurse it. They say, well, we're reopening the investigation. But at that time, we've already chosen not to punish them. There's nothing you could really do about it. And the investigation, we never really heard about ever again. The investigation in 2019 with Kawhi Leonard and at a time where, the reporting at the time was that the Raptors owner was like, dude, we were willing to like help him to the tune of $15 million a year. We were already set to go.
We're going to do the same thing. Just he got more. Yeah.
Really not well enough. The Lakers, right? They, I'm sure you have people that you have spoken to since. I remember at the time, the Lakers were very confident that they were getting Kawhi Leonard. And to this day, they kind of wonder what kind of changed, there. And no, it's not the Paul George trade, Clippers fans. I swear. Like, that's not, the Lakers wouldn't care about that. That's not the kind of thing that would stick in their craw. But the NBA, they investigated that, found no wrongdoing whatsoever, no punishment for Steve Ballmer for that. Did make it clear, though, that if this ever continues, they would reopen said investigation, which brings us now to this. And to me, it's like, you can't investigate this again. You can't exit this process and be like, sorry, everybody, we just couldn't quite hammer this one down, because there is now a trend here. There's a pattern of behavior with Steve Ballmer specifically, and he's only been an owner for, not very long at all now compared to some of his peers and colleagues around the league. And he clearly doesn't care about this. And if you don't investigate this, and if Steve Ballmer isn't punished for not just this case, but potentially for whatever else they find from 2019, and then also tacking that onto the $250,000 fine that he had to pay as it pertained to DeAndre Jordan, if you don't come down hard on this guy, you basically make it so that cap circumvention is the wild, wild west.
That's
you
right.
Basically, at a time where more and more billionaires are making their way into the league, most notably with your marquee franchise, by the way, you are basically saying to those other owners around the league,
yep,
have your fun, everybody. And I'm telling fans right now, because one of the popular kind of takes from all of this is, well, I wish my owner did this. And it's like, you don't want to exist in this world. You don't want to root for a basketball team in that league.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely the case. And that's to your point that they have to come down hard on this, is that it threatens the business model of the league. This is another investigation that I don't remember if it had concluded by the time Silver became commissioner, but I think was very influential on his tenure, was the Tim Donaghy investigation. I think a lot of the overly officious nature of, no pun intended, of the way the refs are, and that is directly traced back to this idea. I think Silver very much believes, like, we cannot have questions about the impartiality of our referees and the league's integrity and all of that. We really have to put a pin in this and make sure that this doesn't continue. And so they make effort. We can argue the effectiveness of things like the last 2-minute report or their method of, again, I think they've become very legalistic in terms of how they ref. And that's why we have these like 10-minute reviews and things like that. And all of it. There are sort of these outgrowths of that. But I think a lot of it is born of the Tim Donaghy investigation, that even throw in like Jonte Porter. We had Terry Rozier. Who was the other one? I feel like there was a third one that I'm missing out on.
Well, you had Michael Porter Jr. explained why that's
Malik Beasley, right?
Yeah.
When did everyone turn into Scarface in the NBA, by the way? Like, how there are so many federal investigations going on right now of like players and things like that. But part of that comes when you don't think there's going to be much, consequence as a result of it. And so that's why I know there's this push today, especially in the media, of like, yeah, it's not really a smoking gun, it's not this or that. It's like, oh, is that what it's like? Is that what it's? And I totally agree with your point that you don't really want to root for a league in that, and you're like a team like the Lakers probably stands to benefit the most of
they do.
That, you know what I'm saying?
Here's the thing. So I think one important note that we should make here is that, technically speaking, teams are allowed to facilitate a meeting between a team sponsor and a player. They are allowed to, set up that meeting, and then they have to take a step back. There can't be any pressure. You can't tell that team sponsor that they have to sponsor that player. But you are allowed to link up. That's why, there was the report the other day or whenever it was that the Lakers and Luka Doncic were going to meet about his future and his financial future and stuff like that, and kind of set up that plan. And one of the criticisms of the Lakers back in the LaMarcus Aldridge meeting that they had was that Tim Harris overtook the meeting and just wouldn't shut up.
Tim Harris bloviating and loving the sound of his own voice. I can't do that.
So that was one of the knocks that at the time, and it came up again in Yaron Weitzman's book just recently, and that is something that a team can say to a player that they can help facilitate. Now they can't get specifically into numbers. They cannot do there are certain lines that you are not allowed to cross. But that is a kind of gray area that teams are allowed to talk to players about. By the way, decent chance Kawhi just ruined that for players.
Sure.
But anyway, and so anyway, the reason I say that is because that is something that does happen around the league, and that is something that other people that I've spoken to have mentioned those are conversations that take place. But you don't. The difference is majority owners aren't allowed to use their companies to sponsor players, right? Because that's cap circumvention. Minority owners, I believe it's a little more vague, and there are some different things that go on there. But majority owners specifically, which Steve Ballmer is very much a majority owner, they are not allowed to own. And one of the notes that was made by Ballmer in that interview last night was that he only owned something like 3% of the country, or well, there's a Freudian slip. The company. The company, he only owned 3% of the company. And the reason that he, I think, made that delineation was because if you own more than 5% of the company, that things start to get a little foggy there. You aren't allowed to, that company is then not allowed to sponsor a player. And he also used the phrase of I didn't have any power, I didn't have any say in who they sponsored and all of that stuff, which runs, explicitly against some of what Pablo Torre reported and some of what that one Aspiration LLC employee said was that when it came time to send out checks to people, Kawhi's had to clear because it would directly impact the company's standing with Steve Ballmer and with the Clippers. Mm-hmm. And that, I think, is a very important detail here, that if that's in any kind of an email, I do believe that would be a bit of a smoking gun that they would be looking for. And so anyway, I with the Lakers, and this is where the other owners and their take on this is going to be interesting to see, because there is an inherent advantage to those teams that have access to sponsors with bigger pockets. That is and that is one of those things that if they really get into, and I don't think owners want this, I don't think the players union wants this, because that's all earning potential. But still, if they try to level out this specific playing field, I think the only way you could do so is to make it so that teams can't facilitate those meetings. But if they don't do that, and this becomes the Wild West, of course that's going to benefit the Lakers, mm-hmm. because who has more marketability than the Los Angeles Lakers? Who has sponsors with bigger pockets than the Los Angeles Lakers? Their cable deal on its own is more generates far more revenue than their competitors. So yeah, I'm just telling the people who keep on saying I really wish that my owner did this. I was you do not want to live in the Wild West in this thing, especially now that Mark Walter is taking over.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, that TV deal, the local deal, negotiated by Tim Harris. He's very good at his job in
Oh,
certain
yeah.
elements, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's absolutely an advantageous environment for the Lakers. But one of the things I love about basketball is it's one of my favorite meritocracies in the world, right? That's one of the things that I learned fairly young in my late teens, early 20s. I was like, hey, wait a second. So many of these rules that we kind of grow up, they're for your benefit, not mine, right? Like I found myself at like 25 driving to a job that I hated, and just like the whole circumstances, I'm like, none of this is for me or for I'm making a lot of money for other people and doing okay, but it's like you sort of realize that that's sort of the rules of the game. But I like the idea that I think basketball is a very fair sport in a lot of ways, right? It's the highest scoring of the major sports. And so I think what that reflects is if you make a good pass on a play, you're probably going to score. It's going to be reflected on the scoreboard. You make a good defensive play, the other team's probably not going to score, right? And then the other extreme is like soccer, right? Where you can make this incredible pass, fucking 40 yards down that lands right on the guy's foot, and he's still probably not going to score, right? And then throughout basketball, I think it's one of the better meritocratic environments. And so the idea of all of these like different ways to sort of not play by the rules and not even things out, like, again, I think the Lakers come out as one of the big dogs at the end of that, but I like the idea of there being a level playing field. It's isn't that why we watch sports?
Yeah.
We could watch pro wrestling, right? And plenty of people do and enjoy it, right? But like the whole point of this is that it's not decided and may the best man or woman win type of thing, and this really violates that type of principle.
Well, so I've been getting a lot of especially Clippers fans asking me, why do you care so much? Why are you so riled up about this story? Even Jen asked me the other day, is like, dude, you're heated about this, because I was talking to her about it at dinner, and I did find myself that I like my fists were balled as I was talking about it. And the reason, Pete, for it, and I'd love to see what you think about this too. I'm gonna zoom way out here. This is gonna get societal. I'm sorry, everybody. We are living in a time where billionaires have just decided, fuck all of you. The rules don't matter. We are in a race to being a trillionaire. That's the only thing that matters to these people, and whoever they squash on their way to doing so. Sorry, everybody. And there's this escapism that should exist in sports, right? There's like, I watch sports and I know people are going to be like, I tuned into your guys' show because I don't want to think about this stuff. It's like, well, I watch sports so I don't have to think about the ways that Steve Ballmer can just trample the things that I care about. And if Steve Ballmer is allowed to just enter the league, pay a $250,000 fine and spit on it on his way out, and if he's allowed to just come in here and basically launder $50 million to help keep Kawhi Leonard, let alone land him. We don't even know what it took to land him in the first place. Like if Harrison used the perfect phrase when he and I talked about this earlier in the week, where he was like, he's doing the tech bro thing of move fast and break things. And it's like, okay, but I don't want you to break the NBA. I don't want you to move fast and break this sport and this league that I love, that I've dedicated my entire life to covering. Fuck that. Like nobody should want that. Nobody should want to like watch or think about a league where that is okay.
What are you going to do about it? It's the same thing that's true in life. They're looking, the same thing's true in you're talking about billionaires who've doubled their money over the last 5 years in exactly the scenario that you're talking about. They're looking us right in the eye and saying, what the fuck are you going to do about it?
Nothing. What can we do, Pete?
What is Adam Silver going to do about it?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, is that like we keep on being told that like the levers of democracy or the levers of this or the levers of society are going to stop these people from being their most Lex Luthor. And I'm still waiting for that shit.
It's not how it works. It's not how it's ever worked.
Well, here's this opportunity where Adam Silver can pull said lever. I know for sure, like I had my problems with the previous commissioner,
Stern,
thank you, David Stern. I have my problems with him. The whole like Chris Paul thing still still bothers me. But if he was presented this situation, the owners feared him. The players union feared him, and it made the league a better place as a result of it. And in this case, the only person who can pull said lever, that hopefully protects us from Steve Ballmer and these. And by the way, again, you and I, Pete, would stand to benefit from it if it becomes the wild, wild west. But I'm telling most people watching this shit would not want that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so the only person protecting you, the listener, fan of the Charlotte Hornets, fan of the Milwaukee Bucks, fan of the Toronto Raptors, most of these teams, you're going to be looking like the knock on baseball is that the only teams that matter are the Yankees and the Red Sox and the Dodgers. And it's like, if you want to watch a league like that, fine. But this is an opportunity here where Adam Silver can step up and pulls that lever and come down hard on this guy for clearly, again, I have to say allegedly so I don't get sued, but clearly, allegedly, bullshit. You know?
Mm-hmm.
But that's why that's why I get so heated about this shit. That's why I keep on tweeting about it. That's why also it touches like every part of society because we're like access journalism matters here in that like ESPN hasn't really said anything, done anything about it, and they just happened to get the Ballmer interview, and it's like league partners too. And there's the like if Shams was still at the Athletic, would he have covered this by now? Would he have done anything? Given how plugged in we all know he is. He hasn't touched this thing either. It's just there's a lot going on here. But to me, the biggest thing is I hate the idea of some of the sixth richest man in the world being able to just come in and wreak havoc on the league, and there being no punishment as people just pretend like this is just circumstantial evidence.
What do you think about Cuban coming in with his Captain Save-A-Ho bullshit, Team Ballmer, and all of that?
Well,
right?
all right.
Yeah, go ahead.
We got a super comment, so I'm going to play the most important clip on the thing. All right, so BG the Kid. Exactly.
It's water.
Cheers,
I
sir.
wish it weren't. But...
I wish it wasn't. I wish I had something stronger next to me.
Oh, what's up? Right on. BG the Kid. He's on top of it. Nice.
Yeah. So BG the Kid. Sup, Anthony and Pete. Just tuning in now. But what the fuck was that Mark Cuban interview? That was some shameless stuff by him. It literally made no sense what he was saying. It felt insulting to listen to. Pete, I found myself wondering if he'd actually listened to the pod.
Mm-hmm.
Like while I was like listening to him go back and forth with Pablo Torre on it, my honest guess is that he had only seen the like 2 or 3 minute
Twitter clip type thing,
and was responding to that. Because a lot of the questions that Mark Cuban was asking were answered in the pod. But Mark Cuban's general premise essentially was that like, there's no way Steve Ballmer is dumb enough to make it this obvious that they were committing cap circumvention. And his basis for it is because Steve Ballmer is the whatever wealthiest man in the world.
They do this all the time. Just because you're brilliant in one aspect of something doesn't mean you can't be a complete dumbass in something else. Look at fucking Elon Musk, the richest person in the world.
Yeah.
You don't think that man's a dumbass in certain ways? He shows it every fucking day on his Twitter account, right?
Yeah.
And so just because like, oh, he'd never be dumb enough to commit. It's like, no, when you have that much money, you know how brazenly open you can be with your shit? And
that's
not have
Pete,
any
expand on that point. Like, that's a very important point. When you become as rich as Steve Ballmer is, as Elon Musk is everybody like at that level,
what's
you're surrounded by enablers.
What's the phrase for that level of money?
Filthy.
Fuck you money is what it's called.
Yeah, that
right?
too.
It's always been called fuck you money because you have so much money. You can tell everybody who doesn't like whatever it is that you're doing, fuck you. Sorry for all the cursing on this one.
I honestly like this is the kind of pod. I knew what it was. I literally the text I sent to you before this was like, I'm so fired up to talk about this. So I knew the F words and all that stuff was going to fly. So apologies to your kids.
So the idea that like they're covering their tracks, like first off, Pablo Torre, freaking great job.
Yes.
It's such a breath of fresh air. Somebody to actually like do their fucking job as a journalist and look into shit and not have to be worried about your access or anything like that. And just like go do that. But like, sorry, go ahead.
No. There was a but or I don't know if there was a but, but no, I essentially like Mark Cuban kept on coming back to this point of like, I like Ballmer. Also, by the way, there's a decent chance that he's going to have to do business with Ballmer because their paths cross a lot. So, like, you probably there's probably some stuff going on there as far as things he wasn't willing to say. The problem with Mark Cuban's defense of Steve Ballmer, and actually Pablo pointed it out, was that you keep talking about this from the perspective of mistakes you wouldn't make. Right? Things that you wouldn't do, the ways that you would protect yourself. And like that. So my dad is, he retired. He was an engineer. And a lot of these tech bro guys, right? Engineers, software developers, all this stuff. A lot of times one of the fallacies that they are and everybody is, but I think in this particular, wavelength in terms of brain length or whatever, is that there's an over evaluation of anecdotal evidence. Your experiences are more important than what is scientifically or what is otherwise out there. And I think that basically that notion, that again, issue that exists within a lot of tech bro brains is what we saw on display in that podcast with Mark Cuban and Pablo Torre, where he is being told time after time after time after time, here's this evidence, here's this evidence, here's this evidence, here's this evidence. But the only evidence that ever mattered to Mark Cuban is how he would have handled that situation and how he thinks Steve Ballmer is going to handle that situation, simply because Steve Ballmer is richer than he is. And
that doesn't stand up to scrutiny. It doesn't stand up to, like, this is part of the reason why, like, I've always felt so compelled toward film. Has been, it's like, we can talk our bullshit, and I'm a podcaster, right? Like I participate in this plenty, right? But like, you can go back and just watch what actually happened. Like, the truth matters. What tangibly happened matters, not your feelings, not your, oh, well, I would have. Like, there's a reason there's documentation for this sort of stuff. And so, yeah, like that. But when that type of argument is made by somebody with money, and it comes with a level of credibility, right? Like, we end up doing the same thing. It's like, oh, well, all of these very wealthy people, they share this opinion. It's like, no, they're covering each other. And there's plenty of places where Mark Cuban has cut corners in his life or made a stupid decision. He'd be the first person to tell you all of that. But like, this whole idea of like, oh, they would never do something dumb. That's not how the world works at all. Even with the smartest, wealthiest people, that's just not how it is.
Well, I would argue that the more money you have, given the advantages that Steve Ballmer has in this NBA atmosphere, he is made to, like, his reputation is on the line in the NBA in ways that, like, less wealthy owners' reputations aren't necessarily. And that, like, he has been, with everything that he has been, hands-on, those projects, those companies, those entities have always done astonishingly well. And in those worlds, especially when you are as wealthy or as powerful as Steve Ballmer or Microsoft was, you can basically bully your way through to success. You can't do that in a world where you're competing against other billionaires, and when there are cap rules, and when when these things are so clearly outlined, what you can and cannot, should or should not be doing. And I think that, like, one of the lines, I was trying to find it in the clips from the show, but one of the things that Steve Ballmer said to me last night was, or not to me, said last night, stuck out to me like crazy, was whether or not I agree with the cap rules, I still have to abide them. And I was like, why note that?
I really want to break this rule. Just letting you know, I really want to not follow this rule, but I will.
Yeah. And that was the thing, was like, it stuck out to me. Did you ever watch the show Silicon Valley?
No.
Oh, it's a great show.
This is a thing. People always say, have you ever watched Billion and what are all these fucking
shows
like about rich assholes? Yeah. Everybody asks me, like, you ever watch these shows about rich assholes? It's like, No, I pay attention to reality. If you follow actual current events, you get plenty. Anyway.
Well,
Sorry,
I
didn't want to
actually
finish
I have to watch those shows because like I have to laugh at it, right? I'm the kind of person who laughs at the train as it runs them over. Like that's just I have to laugh at this shit because otherwise I drive myself nuts. But anyway, in Silicon Valley, essentially the premise is this like really, really, really small startup with a truly revolutionary idea. This guy who has this idea, is kind of up against Google, right? Or another one of these tech giants.
Big bad. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And in the show, it's called Hooli. The big company is called Hooli. So the CEO of Hooli is this incredible TV villain, but he's incredible in how astonishingly stupid he is. And the show does such a great. Yeah,
big old giant.
And the reason that I say this and the reason that I use him as an example here is because it's such a great example of nobody ever telling him no. He has a literal like spiritual advisor who never advises him.
Mm-hmm.
Like this guy,
he's trying to keep his gig. I get paid.
Yeah,
probably a lot. How does he keep his power? How does this guy maintain if he's kind of this bumbling idiot? Why?
By having power.
Yeah.
He keeps his power by having power. Power is power, right? That's one of the main lessons from Game of Thrones, right? Mm-hmm. Where Cersei tells was it Ned or was it one of the characters, but she says arrest him, kill him, don't kill him, let him go. Right. And she's telling her private guard to do that to this person. And she's like
showing off.
You asked me what is power? Power is power, and for somebody like Ballmer, who probably really, really loves Ayn Rand, that's the way that he lives. Right. Like that's the way that guy exists. And the fact that the fact that he noted whether or not I agree with the cap rules, I still have to follow them. He's like, it would be so easy.
How many people wish they were the 6th richest person on the planet? What percentage of the 8 billion people walking this earth do you think a goal would be to have as much money as possible? 90?
Yeah.
And so to get to number 6 out of 8 billion, what do you think are some of the things you have to do or believe, or is it just your sheer brilliance? I'm sure. Yes. Everything you touch turns to gold because you're fucking King Midas, right? And you're No. The way that most of these people, there's a lot of gray area. There are a lot of KL2 Aspire LLCs out there that help facilitate getting some shit done, that got something bigger done, that and this is just the nature of life, right? I'm not even really fighting it. If you haven't agreed upon framework, we're going to operate within this framework like you do within the NBA, then yeah, you got to follow it. But just from a broader perspective, I don't know, man. My family
there are walks of life where there aren't where that isn't outlined, and that's where these people succeed.
Yeah,
and that's the thing is that he has. That's why I want him punished so badly, and frankly, that's why I want him out of the league. Because he's bringing that approach to those walks of life into the NBA. I don't want an NBA where Steve Ballmer can operate in it or thinks that he can operate that way in. Okay. That's not safe to me. That's not the league that I grew up rooting for. And look, more and more billionaires are getting there, and maybe those guys will hold each other kind of accountable or
that's what they tend to do when they get together. Yeah.
No. When they compete against each other, that's at least the notion of the free market. We all know that it isn't a free market. I'm not a child, but at least the notion behind the free market or the notion behind market competition is that at least in this example in the NBA where it is so direct as Steve Ballmer's Clippers against Mark Walters Lakers. Mm-hmm. I do think in that world, Mark Walters' resources can kind of maintain a level playing field with Steve Ballmer. But there are only so many owners who can operate at that height.
Absolutely.
And there are 30 teams.
To that point, did you see Mannix's tweet about this, about kind of the information he'd been getting? Basically, he said that owners and people, they've been talking amongst themselves. Their core complaint of, if this is true, it's like, where is my revenue? Where's my rev share check, right? You're circumventing. That's their main, well, not their main concern, but that was the thing he was communicating, was like, there's $50 million. Some of that should be my money, because Clippers are a salary tax, luxury taxpayer or whatever. And my team gets those checks, and you're circumventing that. So it's not even the like competitive spirit of the league or the cap. It's like, what the fuck's my money, right? So you make a good point that when you get these guys together and they're competing against each other, they're going to scratch and claw for everything they can get. Yeah, they'll be motivated to push back against that. But your closet better be pretty fucking clean itself, right? That's why I say I wonder how much is in the gray area of, and I don't know, but of NBA basketball and money. And I think it's all being figured out on the fly to a certain degree in a new world.
Well, especially as there's so much more money entering the conversation.
New circumstances, yeah.
You know, and actually, with these salaries reaching the heights that they are, I kind of feel like they could do away with the extracurricular stuff. Like the guys who are going to get sponsors, you can get sponsors. It's not hard. This show gets sponsored.
I'm not following what you're saying.
Well, so essentially, again, you know, the thing that is legal for a team to do is to talk to their a sponsor of that team,
and they introduce them, and
they can introduce them to a player, and then they can wash their hands and walk away, right? And like that kind of stuff happens all the time. Most recently, El Pollo Loco, I believe, sponsors the Lakers. Dalton Connect got an El Pollo Loco sponsorship, right? Like that's something that's a relationship that I'm not saying definitely was, you know, started by the Lakers and El Pollo Loco and passed along or whatever. But
are they a sponsor? I don't remember them as a
sponsor. I'm pretty sure they are. I don't know. I've seen their commercials on Spectrum broadcasts. Okay. So like that is that it, like you'll see it, you know, Lemon Daddy, right? Or like those kinds of things where you know, the team can facilitate that. And I'm kind of wondering if the salaries that are being like the amounts of money that these guys are making in the NBA nowadays, if that number is getting so high, or those numbers are getting so high, that maybe it makes sense to just put an end to that ambiguity, just so that we don't have like, because that is the only way to do away with this specific situation.
I'm going to add a tangential story just from experience that I hope you at least finding interesting. So I'd say about 20% of my time when I worked for the Lakers was dedicated to working on corporate partnership projects. And a lot of times it was like video mixes, things like that they would buy 1 or 2 a month and they'd have to get produced, right? And so one, for example, Beyond Meat was, or still is, I think, a partner of theirs. And it was like above and beyond plays of the month type of thing, right?
Yeah.
When we made videos or any content that were sponsored by a partner of the Lakers, we could not prominently feature at all LeBron or AD in those because they had negotiated within their contracts. Like, no, I'm LeBron James. I'm a brand in and of itself. You can't be like, yeah, this is a Lakers bit of content in which LeBron James is like the main character in it, and then LeBron doesn't get money out of it, right? And so if it were part of a team thing, you could show like one play here or there, and then you'd have to get it approved type of thing. But what had happened was at the last year that I had that I worked there was the NBA Players Association started kind of picking up on, this is true about all of us, right? So if you're getting sponsored for this Beyond Meat video and you're getting money to the team for this 1 per month type of video, and it's got
that is BRI technically.
That's right. It's Austin and Rui and all of these Laker players in them. Should we not, as the Players Association, should we not be 50%. Getting part of this, right? And so it became sort of, I forget what the resolution was, but I guess the point that I'm trying to make is that all of this is like being figured out on the fly, even when it's not people cheating or trying to gray out the rules or anything like that. It's just that there's a lot of these circumstances that it's like, what is this worth? How should we handle this? I don't know. Let's figure it out over the course of time. And that's just an example of it.
Well, or even you think about it like if a team has an official Twitter account
Mhm.
and that team gets money from Twitter for the engagement that it generates. Is that BRI? Because those highlights, those highlight reels and moments with those players, like that's probably how they're generating a lot of that engagement.
Uh-huh.
Is that something that players should get? Whatever it is, I think it's like 49 or 48% of. Like
This
that's
is
an
this is an argument I would make when I was with their, like, we should be cranking up YouTube because that's the one platform that's actually going to give you money on the
Yeah.
other end of it. And so, and they're killing it this year. I love what the Lakers are doing with their YouTube channel this year, and they're doing a lot more. And it's like, yeah, there's going to be money at the other end of that. Who does that belong to? Like, I don't know.
I mean,
It's
does that
a
go
lot
to
of
the
gray area.
marketing team? Does the marketing team have to split that with the team? Like,
Are the
you know,
players
like,
entitled to some of that? Like you said,
yeah. But again, though, like these are all things that, that's a conversation that can take place in the forefront. That's not a back room. This is it. The problem with this, right, is how back channeled this is. The Kawhi situation is what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Like the reason that it has gone as viral as it has, and this is extended, by the way, beyond Twitter. This is extended like to where my in-laws are asking me about this.
Oh, has it?
Hey,
Nice.
what did the Clippers do here? What's up with this? And I was like, oh shit.
Mhm.
But so like the reason that I think this has taken hold the way that it has is because like nobody would care, Pete, if Kawhi Leonard had just sent an aspiration tweet. Nobody would
I'm saying,
care.
what did he do for that money?
Yeah, no, like nobody would care if he had retweeted it at some point, if he had liked a tweet from them at some point, if he had made any interaction with them
Shameless,
at any
man.
point, it would
Didn't even
be
fucking
over.
try.
This would not be a story. And the
Mhm.
reason that this has taken hold the way that it has is because everybody's sitting here and look, like, again, this is why so many people around the league are paying such close attention to the punishment and the investigation here, is because they're like, that was an option?
Right.
This
How do we
whole
get
time?
BBGO to subsidize Austin's next contract? That's my question.
Well, look, if you're the Lakers and you have access to the number of sponsors that the Lakers have access to,
Mhm.
and like, so this year specifically, right, Pete, the Lakers are what, like $1.4 million up against the first apron, and they're hard capped at the first apron,
Mhm.
right? How much easier would life be if you only paid, LeBron or whoever, so like $7 million less and made up for it with an Aspirations LLC sponsorship?
Isn't this part of like the NIL thing that's going on right now?
Yes,
This is basically
exactly.
same thing's going on. Is this kid's getting from this car dealership some crazy out of market deal? And I do think that I believe that's one of the rules too, right? Is that like endorsement deals have to be market value.
Yes,
That's why
that's a very important term.
That's why I bring up like Drake and Robert Downey Jr. and all of these. It's like, well, what were they making?
Yeah.
Now, what was Kawhi making from this very same company? These bigger stars are doing more, right? What was he getting paid to do?
Well, they combined, those other celebrities combined made a fraction of what Kawhi was getting from that company. Again, allegedly and according to Pablo and all that stuff. And that, again, that market value of it, the guys on Hoop Collective today were talking about shoe endorsement deals and how you have to be like a mega star to get $7 million a year from your shoe company. Like, you have to be a really good player. You have to have basically your own shoe is how you get, $7 million. Most endorsement deals, especially if it's just to endorse a product, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? The DeAndre Jordan situation there with the Lexus dealership, that was for $200,000 a year. This is for $7 million. And that's, by the way, so according to John Corrales of Locked On Celtics and then the Boston Sports Journal, they were able to unearth that Kawhi's deal was actually for $48 million.
And Pablo reconfirmed that with his own. Yeah.
Which, by the way, boy, it is so nice to see people like, confirming reporting and working off of reporting from other,
Journalism.
like
I
it is
missed
just
it.
it's so nice. Like
It was so important.
Look at that.
I missed those
Ethical.
days.
And well, and I like this is where I'm gonna nerd out for a second, Pete, because grifters wouldn't exist if NBA journalists actually operated ethically. It wouldn't have the RAs of the world wouldn't exist if NBA journalists would confirm each other's reporting and mention that there are in fact other journalists working in the
nobody else is doing this kind of reporting though, Anthony. Like, here's the thing: a lot of those journalists, right, that we've got our fingers wagging at and whatnot, like, they rely on access to be able to, right? They have to be able to go back the next day into the scrum and into that building and all that. And you better be, like, so for something like this, Pablo Torre brought out 3,000 plus pages of evidence, right? It's hard to, not everybody ends up filing bankruptcy. You don't have a paper trail like this for everything you see, read, or hear. Lord knows you know that, Anthony, right? Like that a lot of what you could report or could confirm, right? And so the vast majority of the time it becomes a calculation for the reporter, even somebody that's operating in good faith, that isn't not operating ethically. It's just not worth it, man. It's not worth the calculation, you know?
You also, so there's two things at play there. One, the access, like you're talking about, absolutely agree. I can't tell you the number of times I've had other journalists say to me, like, I can't believe you say the shit about the Lakers that you say and can still report stuff. That is actually insane. Like, you know, so there's that going on. But I also think, so I was talking to somebody about this world of reporting, news brokerage and stuff like that, right? And one of the things that they kind of asked is like, why does ESPN, why did Woj make the amount of money that he made at ESPN? And then why did they immediately have to go and hire Shams after Woj was gone? And my response was, well, because those guys at that level, they dictate reality. They, to a lot of NBA fans out there, those people, like, it's not real until Shams tweets it. And that's what's been so interesting about this situation, where Shams basically hasn't tweeted about it. He tweeted the Clippers response or whatever. He hasn't tweeted about it. He hasn't reported on it. He hasn't done a SportsCenter hit, nothing. He hasn't said anything about this.
Why do you think
and yet, Pete, it's reality. This really happened.
About it.
What's that?
Why do you think he hasn't said anything about it?
The easy answer is he doesn't want to lose his connections with the Clippers. He doesn't want to lose his connections. Like, agents are monitoring this really closely, right? Because of those backroom deals that a lot of their clients benefit from, and they also benefit from. I think that's a part of it. That's the easy thing. But to me, Pete, my theory is that he isn't reporting on it because he didn't break it first. He does not acknowledge stories that other people break. I remember this distinctly when I reported that the Lakers were going to hire or had already come to an agreement with JJ Redick, and how he was on Pat McAfee that day. And he was like, yeah, come on, I haven't heard that. And then you come to find out later, it's like, actually, yeah. Not only was JJ eventually hired, but a lot of the stories that people told about the way that he was hired, it came to confirm my timeline, not his, not Woj's. And yet he had to dodge raindrops basically to try to make it seem as if he had the correct story. He had the true story. And that was what was really interesting about the Dan Hurley situation, was because Woj had to pretend that he had the true story, and Shams had to pretend he had the story. And NBA fans are in the middle sitting like, dads are arguing.
Well, one thing too is that, like, almost very few times do you have the whole story, right? I think a lot of times
almost never.
People expect newsbreakers to be able to tell, like, I know for a fact that Woj and Bob Hurley Sr. go back, like, Woj goes back with the Hurley family ages and decades, right? So the idea that Woj was getting good information from them, like, that sounds totally plausible, right? I know that was one of the few people that Pelinka would talk to.
So does, by the way, Woj doing that family a favor, but Go on.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Talk about somebody transactional and transactional media. Woj knew how to play the game better than anybody.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
I think that the whole thing has changed, frankly, since he's retired in a lot of ways. Sorry, we're off track.
No, but I think this is an important part of it, Pete, is that like that's what makes this story so fascinating to me. And I know we're up against it time wise. We've just now passed an hour, so I'm not going to keep you for too much longer. But the reporting, the coverage on this, like this is why when people go on and on and on about how much journalism matters, speaking truth to power, bringing the Steve Ballmers out into the light and making them answer for a verifiably true story. That's why that shit matters. That's why I get so heated about the way that the league is covered and how unethical NBA coverage has become. In Major League Baseball, Pete, they confirm each other all the time. Football, they confirm each other all the time. But the reason there are so many NBA specific grifters is because there is no confirmation. It just doesn't happen. I think the only time I've ever been confirmed was when I broke that D'Angelo Russell was coming off of the bench, and Wojcicki confirmed me. And I was like, holy shit, that's a thing? We do that? Or y'all do that? And shouts to Wojcicki for confirming it. That was really cool to see. And over the course of the last week or so with the story, nobody else had. Everybody has had to say Pablo Torre alleges this and has broken this and reported this and all that stuff. You have to do that because nobody else was talking about it before Pablo did. So you can't even, like, there's a lot of people who go out and they pretend that they had this thing that they didn't. And then they'll say, like, yes, I can confirm this or that. You couldn't. It's fine. You don't get every story. I don't get every story. That's why, like, the one time that I confirmed that the Lakers were buying the pick, the first pick that they bought, the first time that they bought it this last second round of the draft, I had literally messaged Clutch Points in the Discord there. I was like, yeah, I'm hearing that the Lakers are about to buy a pick. And I was like, I'm going to take a shower and I'll write about it really quick. And in the time that I was fucking in the shower, Shams was like,
rookie move.
I fucked up. I screwed up. But like, while I was in the shower, Shams, tweets out the Lakers are about to buy the 55th pick. And I was like, shit. And then so I say I can confirm Shams's report that the Lakers are getting. And immediately people jump to, oh, I can confirm it too. I saw it on Twitter. And it's like, no, but I actually can. That's the thing here. I actually can. And if there was more of that going on, if covering the NBA was more ethical, we would get more stories like this week. We would actually get more hardline reporting. But with SEO becoming as important as it is, and clicks and transactional journalism and journalism on transactions, like that's the part of it that has really kind of made it so that this story sticks out as uniquely as it has. And I think that's a bit of a bummer.
It is. And this phenomenon that you're explaining exists in more important areas than sports too.
Oh yeah.
And it's part of the reason.
Great point to make.
And it's, this is our escape, but it's also a microcosm of the larger society that we live in. And so, been fun talking with you about this, man.
Yep, absolutely. All right, that is going to do it for this episode of the Lakers Lounge podcast. Thank you to Pete. Make sure you guys are checking out the LFR pod. Their pods have been excellent. The Pelinka pods that you guys did were very, very good. So make sure you guys are tuned in to the LFR pod. We will be back again on Sunday with a mailbag. So get your questions in the form of a 5-star review and I'll get to them then. And until then, have a great rest of your day. Make somebody else's. And we'll talk to you on Sunday. Have a good one, everybody.
Bye, everyone.